In this video, we explore the ramifications of a historic decision made by President Donald Trump, who signed an executive order officially designating these powerful cartels as terrorist organizations. This unprecedented move marked a significant shift in how the United States confronts the complex threat posed by these criminal enterprises. Picture this: the most powerful military force in the world, unleashing its fury against ruthless criminal organizations that have turned Mexico into a battleground of blood and terror. The US military, a global titan of precision, power, and efficiency, faces off against the Mexican cartels, a hydra of drug lords, paramilitary fighters, and unrelenting violence. This isn't a war between equals, it's a collision of extremes. On one side, the unmatched technological might of the United States, capable of leveling entire cities with surgical precision. On the other, cartels steeped in guerrilla warfare, unbound by rules, and driven by billions of dollars in illicit profits. The stakes? Regional stability, civilian lives, and the future of a nation caught in the crossfire. This isn't just a hypothetical scenario, it's a nightmare for anyone who understands the stakes. So, how would such a war play out? Let's dive into the brutal, unforgiving reality of what happens when military dominance meets raw, unrelenting criminal insurgency. The US military, an unstoppable juggernaut. The US military doesn't fight wars, it dominates them. Imagine fleets of Predator and Reaper drones circling above cartel strongholds, raining Hellfire missiles with pinpoint accuracy. Surveillance satellites capable of tracking every vehicle, every convoy, and every communication. There's nowhere to hide. The F-22 Raptor and B-2 Spirit stealth bombers would strike fear into cartel leaders, obliterating fortified compounds before anyone even hears the sonic booms. Add to that the US Army's Apache helicopters and HIMARS rocket systems designed to deliver devastating firepower in seconds. Against this arsenal, the cartels would look like ants facing a magnifying glass under the sun. The US doesn't just send soldiers, it sends predators. Navy SEALs, Delta Force, and Army Rangers are trained for one purpose: surgical destruction of high-value targets. These operatives would infiltrate cartel strongholds, assassinate leadership, and dismantle their operations from the inside. Imagine a team of SEALs hitting a cartel mansion in the dead of night, leaving nothing but silence and bodies in their wake. A war close to home means shorter supply lines, faster deployment, and overwhelming logistical superiority. With bases in Texas, Arizona, and California, the US military could launch operations within hours. Unlike wars fought overseas, this is a conflict where reinforcements are always a few hours away, and supply lines are unbreakable. The cartels, blood-soaked and ruthless. Don't underestimate the cartels. They may not have F-35s or Abrams tanks, but they've mastered a different kind of warfare. These are criminal empires with decades of experience in corruption, violence, and survival. They don't play by the rules, they make their own dot. The cartels are experts in asymmetric warfare. Ambushes, IEDs, human shields, and psychological terror are their tools. They've spent years fighting Mexican police and military forces, adapting to every new tactic thrown at them. A direct confrontation with the US would only push them to evolve further. Money is power, and the cartels have it in spades. With billions of dollars from drug trafficking, they can buy advanced weapons, bribe officials, and even hire mercenaries. Their arsenals include .50 caliber sniper rifles, RPGs, and armored vehicles. Some cartels have even begun deploying drones armed with explosives, a crude but deadly counter to American air superiority. The cartels don't just operate in cities, they own them. Entire neighborhoods are under their control, with civilians forced to act as informants, couriers, or human shields. Any US strike risks massive civilian casualties, turning the population against the military and feeding anti-American propaganda. In a full-scale conflict between the US military and the Mexican cartels, the battlegrounds would be nothing short of hell on earth. Cities would burn, mountains would tremble under the weight of battle, and the blood of soldiers and cartel operatives would soak the ground. This would not be a clean war fought on open plains. It would be a savage, unrelenting brawl in the most treacherous environments imaginable. Let's break down the two primary arenas where this brutal confrontation would unfold: the urban jungles and the mountain strongholds. Imagine the streets of Ciudad Juárez, Tijuana, and Monterrey, Places already scarred by cartel violence would erupt into war zones where every block, every alley, and every building could spell death. The cartels, masters of guerrilla tactics and urban warfare, would turn these cities into death traps. They know these streets better than anyone, and they would use that knowledge to their lethal advantage. US patrols would move cautiously through the cities, knowing full well that at any moment, an IED could rip their convoy apart, or a hail of bullets could rain down from the rooftops. The cartels, with their complete disregard for civilian life, would exploit the population as shields, hiding among them, using their homes as bunkers, and forcing soldiers into the agonizing decision of firing at potential innocents or risking their own lives. The cartels would weaponize fear, planting fake IEDs to slow movements and turning every trash heap into a potential explosive. And then there are the tunnels. Beneath the cities lies a hidden battlefield, a sprawling network of smuggling tunnels. These aren't just for drugs anymore. They're supply lines, escape routes, and ambush points. Clearing them would require soldiers to descend into dark, claustrophobic corridors where the walls themselves could conceal death. Imagine a firefight in a narrow tunnel where the only light comes from the muzzle flashes of rifles. That's the kind of nightmare awaiting US forces. The cartels wouldn't stop there. Snipers would be perched on high-rises, picking off soldiers one by one, while cartel fighters on motorcycles would dart through the streets, executing hit-and-run attacks with ruthless efficiency. Even air superiority would be limited. Drones and helicopters can't easily distinguish a cartel fighter hiding in a dense urban environment. This would be warfare at its dirtiest, a grinding, merciless fight where every street corner could become a soldier's final resting place. If the cities are hell, the Sierra Madre Mountains are a fortress. These rugged, remote regions have long been the cartel's sanctuary, and they would become a nightmare for any invading force. The mountains don't care how advanced your military is. Satellites and drones might locate a compound, but getting boots on the ground is a different story. Every narrow path and jagged cliff would be a gauntlet of ambushes, traps, and sniper fire. The cartels would fortify their strongholds deep within the mountains, building compounds that are invisible to the untrained eye. These aren't just shacks hidden in the woods, they're fortified bunkers, surrounded by minefields and booby traps. Anti-aircraft weapons salvaged from the black market would make airstrikes a costly endeavor, while hidden airstrips would ensure the cartels remain supplied. Cartel fighters would use the terrain itself as a weapon. Landslides would be triggered to bury convoys, bridges would be destroyed to cut off supply lines, and narrow passes would become killing fields. Ambushes would be relentless, with cartel fighters striking hard and fast before vanishing into the wilderness. Hidden labs would churn out drugs to finance the war, while stockpiles of weapons and ammunition would ensure their fighters never run dry. Taking these mountains wouldn't just be a military operation, it would be a war of attrition, one that grinds down soldiers physically and mentally. The only way to neutralize these strongholds would be to send in special forces, but even they would face an uphill battle. Green Berets, Delta Force operators, and Navy SEALs would have to fight tooth and nail to clear these compounds. Helicopter insertions would be vulnerable to anti-aircraft fire, while long-range reconnaissance teams would operate on the razor's edge, knowing that one wrong move could mean death. This isn't Call of Duty. This is war in its most brutal, unforgiving form. This isn't a war that ends with a decisive battle or a clean victory parade. The US military might have overwhelming firepower, but the cartels have something far more insidious: time, terrain, and terror. They don't need to win. They just need to survive long enough to make the cost of victory unbearable. Every dead soldier, every civilian casualty, and every day spent fighting on foreign soil would chip away at American resolve. The Mexican cartels, known for their mastery of corruption and clandestine operations, would face the unrelenting force of the US intelligence apparatus. Cartels have long relied on their ability to infiltrate institutions, corrupt officials, and gather information on law enforcement operations. In a war of this magnitude, they would weaponize bribes, blackmail, and threats like never before. High-ranking officers, soldiers, and their families would become targets, forcing some to turn informants, feeding critical information back to the cartels. On the other side, The US intelligence community would go into overdrive. Agencies like the CIA and NSA would tap every phone call, decode every message, and deploy a relentless campaign of surveillance. This shadow war would be an unrelenting chess match, where every move could mean life or death, and where the players on both sides wield fear and deception as their primary weapons. The cartels would seek to outlast and outmaneuver their technologically superior opponent, fighting a war of survival that could stretch on for years.